Hello et bienvenue à tous dans ce 61e numéro du Rétro. Comme d'habitude, commençons en remerciant tous ceux qui soutiennent la chaîne et qui permettent de continuer la grande aventure des NBA Stories. Nous proposons un travail de recherche et d'interview de plus en plus important. Si vous appréciez ce projet et que vous souhaitez apporter votre pierre à l'édifice, sachez que vous pouvez désormais offrir un tip directement depuis YouTube en cliquant sur le cœur sous cette vidéo. Même le plus minime soutien est grandement apprécié. Merci à tous. La réalisation de cet épisode a été rendue possible grâce au nouveau partenaire des NBA Stories, Hooper. La marque s'est alliée à la chaîne pour concevoir une gamme originale qui commence à se faire de plus en plus remarquer. Découvrez ces maillots vintage sur le site de Hooper et bénéficiez de 10% de réduction en utilisant le code promo LNS10. Équipementier de référence en France, Hooper est votre partenaire pour concevoir le maillot de votre club. C'est simple, il s'occupe de tout. Design, flocage, broderie, sérigraphie. Si des centaines de clubs ont fait confiance à Hooper, c'est car ils proposent un travail made in France de qualité. Découvrez tout leur savoir-faire en vous rendant sur leur site hooperstore.fr. Nous avons aujourd'hui la chance de compter sur la participation de Scott Howard Cooper. Ce dernier est un écrivain et journaliste sportif reconnu aux États-Unis, ayant notamment écrit pour ESPN, Sports Illustrated ou encore le Los Angeles Times. Son récent livre, Steve Kerr, Une vie, qui raconte la carrière atypique du coach des Warriors, est disponible traduit en français aux éditions Amphora. Merci à lui d'avoir accepté de participer à cet épisode. C'est parti. Chicago, 1996. Lorsque Michael Jordan avait pris sa retraite 2 saisons auparavant, beaucoup prédisaient que le règne des Bulls avait touché à sa fin. Après un échec lors de son retour en 1995, Michael Jordan reprit la route de son incroyable croisade, en éliminant les rugueux Seattle Supersonics. Tout était rentré dans l'ordre en 1996. Le trophée Larry O'Brien paradait à nouveau dans les rues de Chicago, une ville ivre de succès dans les années 90. La question était alors dans tous les esprits. Était-ce là le chant du cygne de Michael Jordan ou le début d'une nouvelle série de titres? Après avoir conclu la meilleure saison régulière de l'histoire en 1996, faire mieux était quasiment impossible. Pourtant, la bande à Jordan, Pippen et Rodman n'aborda pas la saison 1997 à la légère.
We tried to take some pressure off our team, so we started out very slow this year. Single practices in training camp, some days off. And we said, don't worry about getting off to a great start and get off to the best start we've ever had as a franchise.
Harper to Jordan. Lead. Whistler and Jordan take it away. Jordan. He did give it to him ultimately. Chicago beginning to kick on all cylinders now. Scottie in the middle. Oh, yeah, Scottie hard to the back. Oh, great look. The fans in this building.
46 victoires pour 6 petites défaites. Voilà le bilan des Bulls à la mi-saison 1997. Lors du tout dernier match de cet exercice, Chicago avait même l'occasion de devenir la première équipe à gagner au moins 70 matchs 2 saisons de suite. Malheureusement, Scottie Pippen manqua un panier à 3 points pour s'imposer face aux Knicks. Le bilan comptable était tout de même édifiant. 69 victoires pour 13 défaites et une première place évidente de la conférence Est. Avril 1997. L'heure des playoffs avait sonné. Bien plus accrocheurs que prévu, les Washington Bullets ne purent pourtant rien faire face à un Michael Jordan incandescent. Le deuxième match de cette série fut un véritable one-man show de MJ, qui inscrivit 55 des 109 points de son équipe.
I got into that zone, if you want to call it, and I couldn't get out. You know, and I apologize to Tex after the game. I didn't. Sorry about the triangle text. I kind of forgot about the triangle, and you know, I mean, once I got in that mode, I just couldn't turn it off.
Atlanta, puis Miami, ne purent que subir l'écrasante domination des Bulls lors de ces playoffs 1997. Hors de question de perdre ses moyens pour l'équipe de Michael Jordan, qui n'attendait qu'une chose, retrouver les finales NBA.
To come up short doesn't really mean nothing. You know, we want to get all the way to the ring and, make it 5, go on from there.
Depuis leur premier titre en 1991, les Bulls de Michael Jordan avaient toujours été les grands favoris des finales NBA. Chacune d'entre elles était similaire. On se demandait si une équipe pouvait faire déjouer Chicago, que nenni. La situation n'était pas différente lors de l'exercice 1996-1997. Cette fois-ci, les Bulls devaient se défaire du Utah Jazz du MVP Karl Malone et de son acolyte, le génial John Stockton. Voilà maintenant plus de 10 saisons que le Jazz rêvait sans succès de rejoindre les finales NBA. Un buzzer beater de Stockton plus tard, l'équipe de Salt Lake City atteignit son rêve. Pour elle, hors de question de faire de la simple figuration dans ces finales.
We fought a long time to get here. We didn't just come here just to show up. We came here to play, and as long as we as a team believe in ourselves and believe that we can beat these guys, we can.
The fifth time in 7 years, and now they go against the amazing Utah Jazz, John Stockton and Karl Malone.
A lot of people respected the Jazz. There's no question about that. John Stockton and Karl Malone were well established by that point and were as feared a twosome as Pippen and Jordan, maybe even more so, because it was seen more in Chicago as Michael and then Scottie, whereas in Salt Lake City, John and Karl were on the same level. They fed off each other. They were a great combination. The Jazz didn't do anything that would surprise you. You knew what they were going to run, pick and roll most of the time. But those two guys were so good at it that you couldn't stop them anyway.
All tied at 12. Malone from Stockton. It
Fouls on Duckett, not 4. Here's Stockton with the ball left to right. Stockton to the free throw line. Back to the mailman on the angle left. Stockton to Malone, the jumper good.
Anyway, people were finally beginning to appreciate Jerry Sloan, who did not get enough credit early on. But by that point, people said, this is a guy that's a terrific coach and can really do a job. And I think a lot of people thought that the Jazz were championship contenders. They proved it with several playoff runs. They had the great shot from John Stockton in Houston to win the Western Conference Finals. There was a lot of momentum. Playing in Utah was tough. That home crowd there that the Jazz had was full of energy, full of noise. I think once the finals started, the Bulls were favored, but nobody would have been shocked, at least nobody outside Chicago, would have been shocked if the Jazz had won that series. They were that good.
And the first, Jordan. Yes. Into the game, yes. Here's Jordan. Setting it up.
Knocked away, Dennis got it back. Wheels, fires a three. Got it! Oh, man. Icing on the cake. Chicago up 2-0. Let's go to Salt Lake.
We just got waxed tonight as a whole. And now we go home. And now you go home and try to protect your home court.
Nicely working on Kerr. Setting up Malone. Malone again.
Once it got to 2-2, there was this great tension that you rarely saw in many Chicago series. That once they established themselves as a championship team, once they got past the Pistons in the earlier Michael Jordan era, these guys steamrolled people. There were rarely anybody that could stay with them, let alone beat them. So once Utah got to 2-2, a lot of people were looking around as in, wow, can this really happen?
Now the big story here tonight concerning Michael Jordan's physical conditions. He is suffering from flu-like symptoms. His status is uncertain.
Souvent si bruyant, le Delta Center pouvait se réjouir, car Michael Jordan malade était tout près de ne pas tenir son rang pour le match 5 de ses finales. Au lieu de cela, cette rencontre s'inscrivit comme l'une des plus légendaires de l'histoire de la NBA. Malgré son état de santé, Jordan inscrivit 38 points, assorti de 7 rebonds, 5 passes, 3 interceptions et un contre.
No matter how sick I was, how tired I was, how low on energy I was, I felt the obligation, to my team, to the city of Chicago, to go out and give that extra effort.
Vendredi 13 juin 1997. Cela allait-il être une soirée maudite pour les Bulls ? L'équipe de Phil Jackson n'avait besoin que d'une victoire dans son enceinte pour décrocher sa 5e bague. Mais rendre les armes si facilement n'était pas dans la trempe du Utah Jazz.
In Chicago, that was you're starting to get nervous because it's game 6 and then it's tight going down to the wire at the finish, and everybody knows obviously if the Bulls lose the game, you go to a game 7, and nobody wants that because anything could happen. What if Michael gets the flu, sprains his ankle? Anything can happen, so you're trying to avoid a game 7.
On Sunday night, Pippen, yes. Yes. Stumped it with the beautiful ball. And here's Troy. Yes.
Out Chicago. It's not going to be easy wrapping it up tonight.
Karl Malone with 12 points.
Avec une tension palpable, ce match 6 resta indécis du début à la fin. À 28 secondes du buzzer final, le score était à égalité, avec la possession pour Chicago. Tout le public, comme le Utah Jazz, n'avait aucun doute sur la suite des événements. Le ballon allait atterrir dans les mains de Michael Jordan. Comme trop souvent, ce dernier allait inscrire un tir de la gagne et écrire une nouvelle page de l'histoire du basketball. Et pourtant, personne ne se doutait alors que MJ en avait décidé autrement. Le héros du soir serait un méconnu joueur de banc, un certain Steve Kerr.
It's one of the strangest journeys you're ever going to find out about. He was born in Beirut to American parents who were living there and working there. His family goes back a couple generations of working in Lebanon and around the Middle East, making a big impact there. He grew up partly in Europe, different parts, and partly in the United States, a town called Pacific Palisades, just outside of Los Angeles. And when you think of a guy that's played 15 seasons in the NBA and the typical background of somebody like who's a star, Steve's the opposite. he had no stardom even in high school. He could barely get a scholarship. He only hooked on with the University of Arizona at the last minute and turned into a star there. Thought maybe if everything broke right for him, he would get 1 or 2 seasons in the NBA. Was close to retiring when he ended up going to Chicago. Had finished up with Orlando. The Magic had no interest in re-signing him. Nobody approached him and offered a contract. There were some conversations, but that was it. And at the last minute in September, pretty close before the start of training camp, he ended up going to the Bulls, and that's where his life changed forever. It was a week, maybe 10 days before Michael retired. He signed there thinking, I could be a 4th, maybe a 5th guard for the Bulls. And right after he gets there, training camp begins, and Michael Jordan is not there. He just retired. But all of a sudden, Steve went from being kind of an insurance policy, somebody that may not be needed all season long, to the guy that was needed right away.
I bend my knees and get my feet set. Then I'm going to be out of rhythm because the defense is going to be on me, and I'll have to do all kinds of setting up. Whereas if I get everything set and I catch, I can go right up with it and I'm ready. So awesome. The preparation is really, before you even get the ball, is where it all starts.
Well, he was a really smart player, and that's one of the things that drew Phil Jackson and Jerry Krause and the Bulls to Steve in the first place, because the triangle offense that Chicago used at the time is not for everybody. It's a challenging offense to learn. Some people say it takes them almost an entire season before they start to feel comfortable. So Steve's role was supposed to be a guy that could come off the bench, be a good practice player, and hit some long-range shots.
Si les Bulls faisaient souvent la une de l'actualité, l'arrivée de Steve Kerr en 1993 passa totalement inaperçue. Avec 2,6 puis 8,6 points par match lors de ses 2 premières saisons à Chicago, le natif de Beyrouth n'était là que pour servir de bouche-trou. Surtout, comment un joueur si discret allait supporter le retour du souvent tyrannique Michael Jordan? Comme à son habitude, ce dernier voulait tester ses nouveaux coéquipiers sans jamais faire dans la délicatesse. Contre toute attente, Jordan trouva pourtant là un coéquipier bien plus obstiné que d'apparence.
Hauls off and hits me in the chest, and I just haul off and hit him right in the eye. And Phil just throws me out of practice.
Steve got beat up by Michael Jordan in a practice, and it's one of the best things to ever happen to him. It's funny to say, but it's true, because Michael wanted people who would fight with him, if not literally. He wanted guys that he knew that with the game on the line would be able to handle the pressure. And because Steve Kerr stood up to Michael Jordan in practice, even though he knew he was going to get punched out, it was a quick fight. That's how bad it went for Steve. It was a couple punches and he ended up with a black eye. That was a message to Michael that this guy will fight literally and figuratively. This guy will stand up to the pressure. I want Steve Kerr on my side. It is one of the most important moments of Steve Kerr's career because he showed Michael Jordan something in that moment.
Retour en finale NBA 1997, à 28 petites secondes de la fin du match 5. Sans surprise, Phil Jackson dessine un plan pour Michael Jordan. Mais ce dernier, toujours plus altruiste et expérimenté, avait une autre idée en tête.
And then you get down to that fourth quarter, and it's back and forth, and the tension in the building, it's practically lifting the roof up. All the concern, the tension, the energy, the nervous energy going on. And it gets to a timeout late in the fourth quarter, and Michael Jordan sort of sees what's going to happen, that the Utah obviously will double team him if he gets the ball.
And Michael was always looking ahead to what was next. He was always kind of envisioning the next play, and he said during the timeout, he said, Stockton's going to come double teaming, so be ready.
At that moment, it's everything that Steve Kerr had worked for his entire life. His mantra all along has been preparation. Even in times where he rarely played earlier in his career, he was early to practice and stayed late after practice. He was early to games, getting shots up out on the court beforehand. And here it was, the moment that it could all come together. And sure enough, just as Michael said, John Stockton leaves Steve Kerr to go and help double on Michael Jordan. The ball comes back to Steve.
Michael in traffic to Kerr.
A lot of people have been asking me about the shot the other night, and there have been some misconceptions about what actually happened. I wanted to clear it up. When we called timeout with 25 seconds to go, we went into the huddle, and Phil told Michael, he said, Michael, I want you to take the last shot. And Michael said, you know, Phil, I don't feel real comfortable in these situations, so maybe we ought to go in another direction. So why don't we go to Steve? So I thought to myself, well, I guess I got to bail Michael out again. Anyway, the shot went in, and that's my story, and I'm sticking to it.
Et voilà que Chicago était une nouvelle fois en liesse en 1997. En plus de gagner titre sur titre, les Bulls arrivaient toujours à écrire de nouveaux moments, prompts à entrer dans l'histoire de la NBA. Cette fois-ci, ce n'était pas de la part de Michael Jordan, mais du méconnu Steve Kerr.
This is his life come together as he's up there about to release the ball. And then when it goes in, he becomes a Chicago hero forever. He becomes part of NBA history, and he's convinced. He thought that that's the moment that changed his entire life.
À deux doigts d'une retraite dans l'anonymat quelques saisons auparavant, l'arrière des Bulls était désormais loué de tous. Toute sa vie durant, il savait qu'à force d'ardeur et de travail, la lumière viendrait un jour sur lui. Ce jour, ce fut le 13 juin 1997. Comme quoi, rien ne sert d'être le plus doué pour écrire sa légende. À cœur vaillant, rien d'impossible.